everybody, I'm Sarah from the Gluten Free Blogger. Welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to show you how to make one of my favourite ever recipes from my book, Delicious Gluten Free Meals. Now, when I first had the idea for this book, I really wanted to fill it with all the things that I'd never been able to eat with celiac disease, and one of the things that I had always wanted to try was a Chicago deep dish pizza. I'm going to show you just how to make them. Now, if you've never had one before, prepare to have your mind blown. You can find the recipe on page 194 of Delicious Gluten Free Meals. Let me show you how to make these. Now, this is a yeasted dough and it has finely ground polenta in it, which gives it this kind of amazing golden colour and a really unique texture. But to start off with, like a lot of my bread recipes, we need to activate our yeast. So I've got some milk here, and what I've done is just zap this in the microwave so it reads about 40 degrees Celsius. Now, I'll just show you this. If you haven't got one of these food thermometers, you really need to get one. It really helps. So this is just below 40, but I think once we put it in a warm spot, it'll be fine. So first I'm going to add some sugar to the milk. This just helps the yeast to activate, and we want it to get nice and frothy, and that's what's going to make this pizza dough rise and become lovely and light and delicious. And then I'm going to add my yeast. Now, you want a dried active yeast. The one I'm using is the Does Farm Gluten Free Quick Yeast, but there's a few gluten-free ones in the UK. Just double check that the yeast that you're using is gluten-free, as some of them do have wheat flour in. Not many, but some do, so always double check. And I can already smell it's got that lovely, you can smell the yeast, so that's always a good sign that this is going to work. Now, we want to leave this covered for about 5 or 10 minutes in a warm spot so that it froths up nicely. If it doesn't, you may find that either your milk is too cold or too hot, or your yeast might be out of date. So always double check that if you're having problems getting your yeast to froth, because we need that to happen for this recipe to work. So it's nice and toasty in here. I've got the heating on. I'm going to cover that up, pop it to the side while I put together my dry ingredients. While the yeast is activating, I'm getting my mixing bowl and I'm going to put all my dry ingredients together, ready to put that yeast mixture in once it's ready. So first up, I've got gluten-free white bread flour. If you can get hold of this, it really helps the recipe. You can make this with a plain gluten-free flour blend, but I just find that the blender flours in this, the properties are much better. It just makes it a lot easier to kind of manipulate the recipe, so I would definitely recommend using this if you can. You can find it in most supermarkets in the UK. Then I've got my finely ground polenta. Always double check that your pack is gluten-free. Polenta naturally is gluten-free, but it can have may contain warnings, so just make sure you pick up a packet which is suitable. Gonna add a bit of salt for flavour. And some xanthan gum. If you haven't used this before, it's really good for gluten-free baking. It helps to kind of replicate the stretch that you would find in a normal gluten bake. Because obviously when we take the gluten out, we lose that, so a little bit of this goes a long way. If you do pick up a tub, you will find it actually lasts quite a long time. And I'll just mix this together with a wooden spoon to combine it all. And once that's ready and our yeast is activated, we can add that in along with some oil, and then that's as simple as it is to make this gluten-free dough. My yeast has had about 5 minutes, and as you can see, it's starting to get a nice froth on it, which is exactly what we want. So I'm going to pour this into the flour mix and give it a good mix, and it will start to come together into a kind of claggy dough. So you can already see it comes together really fast. It's sort of sticky, and this is where we're going to add our oil. So the oil will just help to loosen this up, and it will also help it get that gorgeous sort of crunchy crust in the oven. Just keep mixing. It doesn't need loads, but you do need a little bit of muscle behind this. But the oil should make it easier to start to mix this together. And really quickly, it's just come into this kind of oily ball of dough, and this is exactly what we want. So you can see it's just sort of moving around, it's not sticking at all, and that is where we need this to be. So scrape any dough off a spoon, and now for the easy part, we're going to leave this to prove. So it needs to sit in a warm spot. I tend to put it by a radiator or by a sunny window ledge, and we're going to leave that until it puffs up, and that's when we can form it into our pizzas. Now, if this is in a smaller bowl, I would recommend oiling your cling film. It just means that as the dough rises, it just won't stick to it. But obviously mine's in quite a big bowl, so it's got loads of room in there. And while that's proving, I'm going to show you how to make the really easy marinara sauce. First up, to make the marinara sauce, we want some olive oil in a pan, and we're going to fry off some onions and garlic. Once your onions and garlic are lovely and soft like this, it's time to add the rest of the marinara sauce ingredients. So we've got tinned tomatoes, we've got some tomato puree, a little bit of sugar to help with the acidity of the tomatoes, salt for flavour, and then a bit of basil and some oregano. And once it's starting to boil like this, we just want to leave it uncovered to simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes. So you can see that this is thickened up nicely. I'm going to take it off the heat and pop it to one side until my pizza is ready to construct. I've made my sauce and the dough has finished proving, so let's have a look. I don't know how well you can see, but it's nice and puffy. So I've actually halved the quantities in the recipe book. I've made enough to just do one pizza. So I've got my oven preheating and I've just added some oil to this pan, and this is a round cake pan. Any round pan will do as long as it's non-stick, and I'm just going to grease up the sides of this to make sure that my base doesn't stick. And if your pan is slightly rickety like mine, you might just want to pop it on a baking tray before you put it in the oven in case any of the oil drips out. Now I'm going to wet my hands, which will just stop the dough sticking to them. And I'm going to gently scoop the dough out of the bowl and into my greased dish. Now, as you can see with the wet hands, nothing's sticking to that. And we're simply going to press this out, but because it's basically a pizza pie, I want it to have sides, so I'm going to go up and round the sides as well, at least 2.5 centimetres, which is an inch high up the pan. Keep wetting your hands so that it doesn't stick. As you can see, I'm pushing it down first in the middle to make sure that it's nice and thin. And then I'm using my hands to press the dough up the sides of the tin as well. And that is my dough all squished into the pan. So unlike a normal pizza, we're actually going in with the cheese first. This might seem really backwards, but trust me, you're going to have this gorgeous looking pizza pie that comes out the oven, and when you slice into it, it's going to have all that stringy melty cheese inside. So this really does work. So I've just got some grated mozzarella that I'm going to put into the bottom of my pizza dish. And then you can put whatever toppings you like. I say toppings, they're still going under the sauce. So I've got some pepperoni slices which I'm going to use, but you could use some veg, you could use olives, you could use maybe chicken, any other cured meats. Whatever you fancy, layer it all in there, ready to put the tomato sauce on top. And then we go for the sauce next. I know it seems crazy, but trust me, it really does work. I've got my marinara sauce here that I cooked earlier, and I'm literally going to scoop all of this on top of the pizza. And I'll smooth that out nice and evenly over everything. And this is why we have the high walls, because we don't want the marinara sauce to be higher than the pizza walls themselves. And then to finish this off, I'm going to pop some grated Parmesan cheese on top. I've only got pre-grated here, because that's all that was in the fridge, but any sort of Parmesan will work. And that is now ready to go in the oven. I'm going to pop it in my preheated oven. A really, really hot oven is important for this. And I'll show you it when it comes out. Right, it is out of the oven and here it is. This is my gluten-free Chicago style pizza, but I'm gonna have to cut it open to show you the pure amazingness of this recipe. So using a springform tin makes it nice and easy to get it out the pan. I mean, look at that in all its cheesy, tomatoey, crusty, glorious, and look. Oh, so much crunch in that base. Listen. Oh, the cheese pull, the cheese pull. Look at that. You've got the crispy crust, you've got this melty, stringy mozzarella, and this amazing rich tomato sauce. It is just, Oh my gosh, I'm salivating just filming this. So there it is in all its glory, my gluten-free deep dish pizza pie. If you have never tried making one of these before, prepare to have your mind blown. They're so easy to make, and actually I think easier than a normal pizza recipe, because you don't have to worry about rolling out the dough and neatening the edges and transferring it onto a baking sheet. You literally shove it in a pie dish and mould it to shape. It could not be easier. If you want to give this recipe a go, which I seriously urge that you should, you can find it on page 194 of my book, Delicious Gluten Free Meals. And I just cannot wait to hear how you get on with this one, because honestly, I think it could be my favourite recipe in the whole book. Hopefully this video has shown you how easy it is to make this insane gluten-free pizza pie. I mean, people with celiac disease should not be missing out on food like this. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe for more recipe videos like this, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!